Part 1. Winter Spark. On a bitter December evening in New Orleans, the streets glowed under strings of holiday lights, casting golden reflections on rain-slick sidewalks. Inside the waiting area of the Marigny Community Clinic, 12-year-old Ava Williams clutched the sleeve of her mother's worn coat. Her eyes, big and watchful, barely glanced at the blinking wreaths and Santa cutouts taped to shop windows. Beside her stood her mother, Denise Williams, exhausted, her scrubs wrinkled after another 14-hour shift. Denise's curls were pulled into a tight bun, her back slightly bent not from age, but from years of doing everything alone. Yet she still managed to smile down at her daughter with a gentleness that seemed impossible after such a long day. As the number 88 bus approached, Ava leaned her head against her mom's arm. "Long day, baby?" Denise asked. Ava nodded. "You look more tired than me." Denise chuckled. "That's because you're not the one juggling flu patients and overdue charts." Their two-bedroom apartment, perched above a laundromat off Claiborne Avenue, was tiny, with a temperamental heater and a persistent creak in the hallway floor. But it was home. Denise made it warm, with lavender-scented laundry, dollar store fairy lights, and handwritten quotes taped to the fridge like tiny prayers. Every night, Denise managed to cook from scratch, turning canned lentils and yesterday's bread into something that felt like love. And no matter how tired she was, when Ava needed help with math or science, Denise was there, whispering formulas through yawns. Ava saw it all: the textbooks Denise fell asleep reading, the nursing flashcards she reviewed on her lunch break, the quiet whispering of anatomy terms while stirring a pot of beans. Denise once took night classes at Tulane's nursing program, but dropped out when Ava got sick and she couldn't afford the tuition. The dream of becoming a registered nurse had been shelved, maybe not forgotten, but buried. 1 week earlier, as they walked past a tiny jewelry shop on Royal Street, Ava saw her mother pause, just once, at a display window. Inside, nestled in blue velvet, sat a delicate silver locket shaped like a teardrop, engraved with swirling vines. Denise pressed her fingers gently to the glass and murmured, "Maybe one day." That whisper lodged in Ava's heart like a promise. Part 2. A pocket full of hope. Ava began saving. Quietly, methodically. Coins from her birthday. Change from errands. A few crumpled bills from helping Miss Trudy in apartment 2C carry groceries. For months, she added to a wrinkled Ziploc bag hidden beneath her bed. She didn't tell Denise. This Christmas, she wanted to give her mom something more than a hug or a card. She wanted something real, something shiny, something that said, "I see you. I see everything you've done for me." They never had a tree, or blinking lights, or matching pajamas. Denise always said the holidays weren't about stuff, they were about being present. But Ava wanted to give her mother more than just presents. She wanted to give her beauty, dignity, a reminder that she mattered. Ava knew exactly which necklace she wanted and which store it was in. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that someone else was about to step into her life at the perfect moment. Not through magic, but through the radical power of being seen. Part 3. The Encounter. The next afternoon, the final bell rang at Beauregard Elementary. Ava burst from the building, her Ziploc bag tucked inside her backpack like treasure. The French Quarter shimmered in dusklight. Musicians strummed guitars, tourists laughed over beignets, and street lamps blinked on one by one. Ava weaved through the crowd until she stood before the jewelry shop, the locket still nestled in its velvet cradle inside the window. She opened the door. The air smelled like cedar and rose. Behind the counter stood Mrs. Landry, a slender woman in her 60s, pearl choker resting neatly on her collarbone. Her expression tightened slightly at the sight of Ava's frayed backpack and worn shoes. Ava stepped forward and placed the Ziploc bag on the counter. "I'd like to buy the silver locket in the window, please," she said, her voice trembling but clear. Mrs. Landry peered into the bag, then consulted a small calculator. "That piece was on sale, but it went back to full price this week. It's $29.95 now." Ava carefully unfolded her savings, 3 $5 bills, a handful of quarters, nickels and dimes. "I have $17.85, she said, her cheeks burning. "It's for my mom. She works really hard." "Mrs." Landry's expression softened, but she shook her head. "Sweetheart, I wish I could help, but the shop has rules." She gestured toward the discount bin. Ava nodded numbly, heart sinking. She began scooping the coins back in her bag when a calm voice interrupted. "I think a mom like that deserves something beautiful, don't you?" Ava turned. Standing near the entrance was a tall woman in a charcoal trench coat, gray scarf draped around her neck. Her name was Claire Monroe, a documentary filmmaker known for her quiet strength and deep empathy. Claire stepped forward and crouched beside Ava. "Is that necklace for your mom?" she asked gently. Ava nodded. "Then let's make sure she gets it." Claire handed Mrs. Landry a crisp $50 bill. "Please wrap it beautifully," she said. "Mrs." Landry blinked, then nodded and disappeared into the back room. Claire smiled at Ava. "I'm Claire," she said, holding out her hand. "Ava," the girl whispered. Claire reached in her coat and handed Ava a sleek business card. "You did something brave today," she said. "Not every kid would. Would you tell me more about your mom?" Ava nodded. In the quiet light of that small shop, Ava spoke. Part 4. A Dream Reawakened. Ava and Claire sat on a velvet-cushioned bench tucked in the corner of the shop. The scent of polished wood and fresh wrapping paper lingered in the air as Mrs. Landry prepared the gift in the back room. Ava clutched Claire's business card like it was sacred. Her eyes flicked up occasionally, unsure if this moment was real or some kind of dream. "You wanted to know about my mom?" Ava asked, her voice small but steadier than before. Claire nodded. "Only if you feel like sharing. I get the sense she's someone remarkable." Ava took a breath. "She is. Her name's Denise. She works at the Marigny Clinic, not as a nurse, yet, but she's the one everyone calls when things get scary. People who don't speak English. She helps them feel safe. She wraps wounds like she's making art. And even after long days, she still helps me with my homework." Claire listened, saying nothing, but her eyes reflected something deeper than sympathy, recognition. "She used to go to school," Ava continued. "Took night classes to become a nurse. But then I got sick a lot, and she had to drop out. She works extra shifts now just to cover rent and groceries. But I still catch her whispering medical words when she thinks I'm asleep. She studies from flashcards she printed years ago." Claire's expression shifted, a flicker of emotion crossing her face. Not pity, something stronger. "She misses learning," Ava whispered. They sat in silence for a beat, the weight of Ava's words settling in the quiet like snowfall. Then Claire leaned forward. "It sounds like your mom is already a nurse. She just hasn't been handed the paper that says so." Just then, a brisk voice interrupted the moment. A woman in a navy blazer with a tight ponytail approached, a tablet tucked under one arm. "Ms. Monroe, sorry to interrupt. There's an issue with tomorrow's shoot. Location changes." Claire offered a polite nod. "Give me a few minutes." The assistant hesitated, then stepped back. Ava watched, worried this magical stranger might suddenly vanish from her life like most good things had. But Claire stayed. She walked a few paces away, speaking into her phone, her voice low but firm. Ava couldn't catch the words, but she saw Claire's face change, first curious, then determined. After a few more moments, Claire tucked her phone away and returned, kneeling once more in front of Ava. "I have one more question," she said gently. "If your mom could have one wish, not counting time with you, what would it be?" Ava didn't hesitate. "To go back to school. To finish nursing." Claire smiled, not the soft smile from earlier, but one filled with fire. "Then maybe it's time someone helped her do that." She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a manila envelope. "Put this in your backpack," she said. "Don't open it until you're home with your mom. And tomorrow morning, I want you both to call the number on that card I gave you. Promise." Ava nodded, eyes wide with tears. Claire brushed a curl from Ava's forehead with motherly tenderness. "You wanted to give her something shiny," Claire said softly. "But sometimes the most powerful gifts don't glitter. Sometimes they open doors." Part 5. The Envelope. The next morning, pale sunlight spilled through the windows of their apartment. The tiny kitchen smelled faintly of cinnamon toast, but Ava couldn't eat. The manila envelope sat untouched on the table, as if glowing with quiet promise. Denise stood nearby in her robe, arms folded, her brow creased. "Ava, what is this?" she asked, voice careful. Ava took a breath. "It's from someone I met yesterday. She helped me buy your necklace." Denise's eyes narrowed slightly, then softened. "You bought me? The one you looked at on Royal Street?" Denise blinked. "That was weeks ago. I saved up," Ava whispered. "But it wasn't enough. And this woman, Claire, she helped." Denise slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a partially completed scholarship application, Louisiana State University School of Nursing. A signed cover letter from Claire Monroe accompanied it, along with a breakdown of tuition, textbooks, lab fees, childcare, all accounted for. And there, printed at the bottom in elegant handwriting, "Denise, you've already proven your strength. Let this help you prove the rest." "Claire." Denise's hands trembled. I don't understand," she said, her voice cracking. "Why would she?" "Because I told her about you," Ava said softly. "How amazing you are. How you never stop trying. And maybe someone finally saw you the way I do." Denise covered her mouth with one hand, tears falling fast now. The phone rang. Denise hesitated, then picked up. "MS. Williams," a calm voice asked. "We've been expecting your call." "MS. Monroe told us to walk you through the next steps. Are you available for an admissions interview this week?" Denise, stunned, whispered, "Yes. Yes, I am.